Take a good look at these satellite images. What you're seeing is the Kapustin Yar Missile Test Center in the Astrakhan region of Russia, more than 1,200 kilometers inside Russian territory. This isn't just another military base. This is the birthplace of Russia's most terrifying weapon, the Oreshnik hypersonic missile. And do you see those hangars? This is where Russia assembles and prepares the missiles that Putin used to threaten all of Europe. The same missiles he fired at Lviv in January, just 60 kilometers from the border with Poland. The nuclear-capable missile that Russia uses to send messages to NATO. And now, well, look at this. On the night of January 27th, Ukraine did something that no one, not the Pentagon, not Moscow, not even Kyiv, was sure was possible. They hit it dead on. Putin, on the other hand, spent months building up the image of Oreshnik as his ultimate trump card. Unstoppable, hypersonic, nuclear-capable, a weapon designed to make Europe back down.
There is no chance to shoot down these Oreshnik missiles. Well, if those Western experts you mentioned think so, we suggest they and those in the West and the United States who pay them for their analysis conduct some kind of technological experiment, a high-tech duel of the 21st century.
But Ukraine has just taken it out of operation. And when you find out how they did it, you'll understand why Putin has plenty of reasons to be worried. Modern conflicts aren't won just with missiles. They're won by those who learn faster. Now look at what Ukraine did. To understand what just happened, you need to go back a few weeks. On the night of January 8th, Russia launched one of its biggest air attacks since the start of the war. 242 drones, 36 missiles, all flying toward Ukrainian cities. In Kyiv, families ran to air raid shelters in the middle of the night, and the sky lit up with explosions. When the attack was over, 4 people were dead, 22 were injured. But Kyiv wasn't the only target that night. While Ukraine struggled to shoot down this wave of missiles and drones, Russia was hiding something in the midst of the chaos. A single missile, Oreshnik, fired straight at Lviv. Now, Lviv isn't just any city. It's in western Ukraine. Not on the front lines, it's a logistics hub, an entry point for Western aid. People there felt relatively safe. After all, Lviv is far from the fighting, but on the night of January 8th, that sense of security evaporated. Because Lviv is about 60 to 70 kilometers from the border with Poland, and Poland is a NATO member, Putin didn't choose Lviv by accident. The message was clear. This missile can reach NATO, it can hit Warsaw, it can hit Berlin, and it can carry nuclear warheads. So, back off, stop helping Ukraine, or you'll be next. But wait, there's something about this missile you need to understand. Oreshnik is different from anything Russia has used before. It flies at over Mach 10. So fast that it creates a layer of plasma around itself. Radars can't track it properly, and when it hits the target, it releases 36 individual impacts, falling from the sky like a storm of hypersonic metal. The impact temperature is comparable to the surface of the sun. Bunkers evaporate, concrete turns to dust. And here's the detail that made Europe tremble. This missile was designed to carry nuclear bombs. Putin didn't put one in when he attacked Lviv, but he made sure everyone knew he could have. Europe got the message. Immediately, ministers started talking publicly about a serious security threat. Military analysts warned that Russia had just lowered the threshold for a possible nuclear response. Everything was going according to Putin's plan. Intimidation works when no one dares to challenge you. Therefore, he expected Europe to back down to pressure Ukraine to negotiate, to stop sending weapons, but Ukraine did not back down. She attacked 3 weeks after the attack on Lviv. Ukrainian missiles crossed more than 1,000 kilometers of Russian territory and hit exactly the place from where the Oreshnik had been launched. Kapustin Yar, the heart of Russia's hypersonic missile program. And what did Ukraine use? A missile called Flamingo. And now comes the most important part. If you've never heard of the Flamingo before, you're not alone. This is one of the best-kept secrets of the war. The Flamingo isn't an ordinary drone, it's not an ordinary cruise missile, it's a hybrid of both. It combines the autonomy of a drone with the destructive power of a missile. Let me put this into perspective. The Flamingo can fly over 3,000 kilometers. This means it can be launched from Ukraine and hit targets deeper inside Russia than any other Ukrainian weapon. It carries more than a ton of explosives and flies fast, low enough to get past air defenses before they realize what's happening. But there's an even better part. The Flamingo costs 5 times less than an American Tomahawk missile. Ukraine is mass-producing these weapons using old repurposed airplane engines that are no longer suitable for the original planes, but they work perfectly for a one-way trip into the interior of Russia. The company that makes the Flamingo, Firepoint, was already producing between 2 and 3 missiles a day by the end of 2025. And the plans are ambitious. The goal is to reach 7 to 8 missiles per day. This means dozens of Flamingos coming off the production line every week, enough to keep constant pressure on strategic Russian targets. And Kapustin Yar was the perfect target. When the Flamingos hit the base on the night of January 27th, they didn't hit any buildings. They went straight to the hangars where Russia assembles and prepares its missiles before launch. The satellite images don't lie. At least one hangar was severely damaged, several buildings were hit, and part of the team had to be evacuated. Do you want to know what this means in practice? Even if Russia has more Oreshnik missiles in stock, it has nowhere to prepare them for launch. Rebuilding these hangars will take time, money, and resources, but here is Putin's real nightmare. Everything Russia rebuilds, Ukraine can destroy again, because the Flamingo has range and Ukraine is increasing production. Therefore, this is not a problem that Putin can simply fix. Now, pay attention to what this really means. Putin launched the Oreshnik against Lviv to intimidate Europe, to show power, to make everyone back down, but Ukraine responded by hitting the very home of the Oreshnik. And suddenly, Putin faces a problem he never imagined he would have. Ukraine now has real retaliatory power. Before Flamingo, Ukraine could only attack targets near the border, fuel depots, air bases. On the front line, nothing too deep. But now Kapustin Yar is about 120 kilometers from the border, and the Flamingo made it there. It got past Russian air defenses, hit one of the most protected sites in the Russian military complex, and caused real damage. This completely changes the game, because now any Russian base that launches attacks against Ukraine becomes a potential target. Think about it. The Sheikovka air base is near the border, houses heavy bombers, is said to store nuclear weapons, and is within range of the Flamingo. The Chkalovsky air base serves the Baltic fleet. It may be helping the Shadow fleet that keeps oil money flowing to Russia, and it's also within range. The Flamingo can reach dozens of Russian military bases, many of them hundreds of kilometers beyond what Ukraine was able to reach before. So Putin has to be wondering, if Ukraine can hit the Oreshnik launch site, what else can it hit? The answer is simple, much more than he would like to admit. And here comes the part that makes all of this irreversible. It's not because Russia can't rebuild Kapustin Yar, it can. but because Ukraine has proven something that can't be disproven. It has proven that it has the capability, the technology, and the will to strike at the heart of Russian military power. Every new Flamingo that comes off the production line adds more pressure on Putin. Every Russian military base within that 3,000-kilometer circle is now vulnerable. And as Ukraine refines the design, improves the success rate, and increases production, that vulnerability is only going to grow. President Zelensky made that clear in December. He said that in a recent test, 5 Flamingos were launched, 1 destroyed the target, and 4 were intercepted. But then he added something revealing. He said, "All of this is getting stronger in practice, month after month." And do you want to know what he meant? The Flamingo that hit Kapustin Yar is not the best version that will exist. It's just the beginning. Ukraine will keep testing, adjusting, improving, making it harder to intercept. And every time Putin gives Ukraine an excuse to use the Flamingo, the missile gets better. But now comes the question everyone is asking. After all, will Putin respond, or rather, will he respond with the nuclear weapons? The answer is no, and you need to understand why. The attack on Kapustin Yar wasn't just about destroying hangars, it was about calling Putin's nuclear bluff. Russia has spent the last few months making threats about it, about nuclear use, changed its doctrine, lowered the threshold for what would justify an atomic response, and held special Security Council meetings to discuss possible nuclear tests. All of this was theater, calculated intimidation to make Europe back down. To make the United States hesitate to provide more weapons, to make Ukraine think twice before attacking Russian territory, and it worked for a while. But Ukraine forced Putin's hand, attacking a nuclear weapons facility with a conventional strike. And now Putin has 2 options. The first option is to respond with a nuclear weapon, to use a tactical bomb against Ukrainian targets, to prove he wasn't bluffing and immediately become the country that no one in the world wants to touch. The United States would cut off all cooperation. China, Putin's most powerful ally, would distance itself, India too, and economic sanctions would multiply. Russia would become the first country to use nuclear weapons in combat since 1945. That would be the end. The second option is to do nothing nuclear, to continue with conventional attacks, try to rebuild Kapustin Yar, and implicitly admit that all the nuclear threats were empty, to lose credibility as a nuclear power. Putin chose the second option because he knows the first one means the end of Russia, and Ukraine knew that too. That's why they attacked. They were betting that Putin wouldn't cross that line, and they were right. And that's what makes this moment irreversible. It's not just about the physical damage to Kapustin Yar, it's about the damage to Putin's credibility as a leader willing to use nuclear force. Europe saw it, NATO saw it, and more importantly, Russia itself saw it. The mask has fallen and there's no way to put it back on. Ukraine didn't just hit the Oreshnik base, it struck at the foundation of Putin's nuclear intimidation strategy. And when you destroy a foundation, everything else collapses. Now I want to know your opinion. Do you think Ukraine made the right decision? By attacking Kapustin Yar, was it a brilliant move or too risky? Leave your answer in the comments, and if you found this video important, share it with those who need to understand what's really happening in this war. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next analyses. See you next time.